that people might have when we are asked to do something, we should not always be in a rush. We should consider the people around us that are not working to consider it. We're trying to consider that. I think in terms of SOP we write about, we should consider those that also come into the activity and not just only the people working in the activity. So we must consider outsiders that will come into the activity.
So you're saying that we agree that there are also outsider visitors to the lab.
Yes.
And then we also need certain information. So starting guides and direction that they will ask at the company. Who are those, like who are outside our contractors? Our contractors. Yes.
Even our clients don't want to service. Just in a nutshell, what we know, they may not know. So the importance of that communication is to keep them safe while we are also safe.
What we also that in preventing hazards, there are marks or symbols that can be put in positions to indicate danger. What again? If you see a skull,
okay, you have said to indicate danger. Yes. Let's take that on here. No, go to the next. One minute. The strategies must be clear for them to understand. Okay. So they are like international convention. Hello. Let's listen to them.
Where there are potential risks and bound security on the road, trying to say that those two places
This one I'm doing something about the content of So if you listen to they have the floor. All right. That's yes.
no.
Yeah, no.
Yes, sir.
Now, you do benefit from what you said. Okay, let's start from
alarms, orientation, CCTV. And we also learned that the different categories, professionals and individuals that see the lab, that we can choose to incorporate professional target schools.
So we must choose appropriate communication methods. Thank you very much. All right, let's go to it. Yes, definitely. You can go.
So what did we really what did we really arrive at? What about consensus now?
Okay, we arrived at by security processes and methods put in place to prevent, right after, misuse, intentional release of financial evidence and consulting.
Valuable biological materials, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's what are the 5 pillars of environmental security in terms of mitigation? 5 pillars.
Okay.
Delay, detection, arrestment. I remember it just said BER, right? So, personnel management.
Personnel management. What did we that gives some that gives some highlights of what we talk about under personnel management.
We'll talk about personnel management, we'll talk about volunteer in the area, those who are trained and have also particularly the percent where train people to man the equipment, whatever that. We talk about the training and so on. Who should do that and to whom?
Okay, so we also added that in terms of personnel management, we looked at effective right? In terms of recruitment and selection, and then another also in that regards, there is nothing like impotency or whatever, but we have to get the best properly vetted staff to work. Yes, so next thing.
We have as one of the pillars to material control and accountability. And here we want to ask some questions so that the materials are available. Who is responsible for a particular item so that we have the accountability? So not that we want to catch a thief or to be able to monitor whatever is available.
So you are talking here about material accountability. So we're looking at what is available, and then where is it available to this responsible material accountability. So we have security, personnel management, material
Any other one?
Transport security. And the same mitigation process that is being put in place when the material is in lab should be the same when the material is being transported. Because the same thing that you're conscious of to happen to the electrical material in the lab can also happen to the outside. So all the mitigation process should also be put in place exactly how it is being observed in the laboratory during transport.
In terms of safety of the laboratory based on materials and assets, as good as the people working there. So, recruitment personnel, I think is the beginning of that security process.
That's very much. With the ability to addition is for emphasis. Very, very important. Okay.
One because of the contribute. The transport system is complicated because mostly involved in sample transportation, packaging, and sample management system. But it looks as if this particular aspect in this country is not working well. How do we mitigate? Because most of the times these samples are maybe handled by courier services that maybe trained, they are not professionals, maybe they are trained and not well trained to do that job. And most of the times, like what is sustainable from a place, we transport samples to the National Reference Lab, and the samples are mostly moved by road. We do the packaging, and the courier services will check and we want to pick it in the evening because early hours of the next day they are expected to take this sample to the park, and necessarily release that gel. And something could happen. It depends on his own knowledge and if you could incited by someone like, yes, this thing you do, or you could do this, you could do that. How do we bring out some advices that to at least cut down this type of thing and reduce the virus by releasing these samples to some of this untrained personnel and maybe people with questionable characters that they are being employed to do this type of job. I want to say something based on what you said about the transport. Because sometimes we also take samples from our animals and we have to send it to farm. Most of the times what we do, in fact, most of the people taking the samples doesn't know anything about that. Because sometimes you have to go to the transport company or something, then to take the sample to us. What we do is that, first of all, you have to speak to the driver that is taking that sample. You have to make him understand some certain things and give him conditions before paying because they need tickets. So you tell him that this is what I need and this sample should not be tempered. You should keep it in a place where nothing happens. Just lay some little, how do I say now? Just try to make him understand what he's taking. Orientation. Just give him a little orientation. And then your packaging should be intact because that's not the fact that you're giving him an orientation of what is taking, anything can happen. So you should also be conscious of the way you package those samples in case of any eventuality. So by that, you're not saying your work in the laboratory exceeds the lab and go up to the park. Yes. So this issue of transportation, do we suggest that the scientific officer at the
But believe I like also these agencies, massively. That there should be.
Something is missing.
Yes.
I believe there should be, or there is, if there is not, there will be a license, a regulatory body that regulates transport of biomaterials and laboratory products from one place to the other in Nigeria. As it is now, you see a lab. At times I send a patient to do some lab we take the same samples to Turkey, for example. Or I'll look at our time to get going to do some autoimmune markers. More attention and still take back all its one. To take samples to Turkey. And even for that to act high, but from my experience, it's always, and there's no regulation. I think this year, the website is better. But anybody that have the qualification to this kind of thing nationwide. And before any laboratory in Nigeria, whether for customers or research laboratory, transporting any biomaterial for that category must meet certain standards. And it should just be registered as a body and pay certain fees that they use in the process. And if there are any defaults, there should be appropriate sanctions. When there are no sanctions, there's no way of managing the process. I think going forward, if it's not happening already, it should happen. If not, most of these results are not results. I tell you that the example that have been degraded because it's now checked to 40 degrees heating. They put off the vehicle or left it so in the rig. When the packaging is not the precise package for laboratories, a lot of packaging for the other they are not looking. The size is not going to matter. Because it's not trying to package. In fact, the size is going to you have the electricity of the package. So I think this really is the chance to study.
Yes. This is what you're talking about is about the shipment. If it's out of the country, I think now it's covered.
In country out from anywhere you can from your body.
We just in workshop like I think we don't have communicate. I think we have communicate. The point based by the only. Yeah, I think it's very valid. We don't have a company. Don't know. I'm naive about that. Or agency that transports biological material from one point to the other. I was watching one video during the country where they use drone to deliver samples to some remote areas. Okay, Kenya, they use drones. So if things like that can be done in Nigeria, where you can use drone to move the sample from one country to another. We're talking about in country within, not outside. That's why I'm talking about community. I just don't have to for stuff like this. This kind of issues will capture the communicate and disseminate to the appropriate water. Thank you.
Okay, I want to, sorry, so I lost the issue that I raised 7 minutes. Yeah, yesterday when the president was taking his movement, when he got to transport security, I remember he mentioned something that's very shitty. And it's a whole, 3-day course. Well, we are privileged to also one of the times, President and I were going to Maiduguri to do a training. So as we came down to our lighter, and then we were waiting for our baggage. So we saw when they got there, we saw a cooler, this cooler with blood stain. With blood stain. And we were just wondering. So I was wondering what we that cooler. But all my mind, all I was just thinking was that something hazardous
So, and it was actually a challenge. Then I also reflected that in the days when I was doing my work, I was moving my culture plates and slants and all that. Then I will move from Port to Bini, and then just put them in the school like that. So I bought them vehicle. This Edo transport, those exactly. At another time, I was in a computer. So under the season, sometimes with checking and my bags scattered. And even about a few of those places, they just fell out. I didn't really realize then I had not really been exposed to the issue of shipment of. I'm just trying to say that that's the picture we have in the country. Thank God that somebody is making this kind of comment here. Very, very important. That was also one of the reasons why we started as an association, thinking along the line that we also have to do something about how materials are transported, whether in the country or across the globe. And then also got to realize that a few of us, besides some of the programs we have in the country, the malaria program, TB, and all that, so we have all this, information support, do some training and all that. But we have not really had the unified position. Because, however, we have the Nigerian National Security Management Agency. There was this Biosafety Act of 2015. Although it was actually tailored for us, Dr. Rufus, who is the Telebank agency, will talk so much about genetically modified organisms. But in the amended Act 2019, that Act has become a bit more robust. And I know that last year, pursuant to some provisions in that Act, that agency has developed the National Biosafety and Biosafety Policy in Nigeria. I think that's also been adopted also. I know there is a spirit of lessons for Indians. It's still working progress. I know I don't agree with next week's meeting, which I So when that is completed, I know that there are those who will portion to the provisions. I know, apart from some few multinational companies, agencies that have very fine facilities, they tend to do things properly, very properly. In fact, there's a company I know that they get their, for blood transfusion, they get their blood from blood care foundation. Everybody comes all the way from UK. Sometimes it must arrive here within 12 hours. Comes with 10 cents. In fact, I remember one of the times I was involved in one of the courses, and then just about the temperature difference of 1 percent. How to reject the entire because that's the standard. Actually, when everything just went there, as soon as we read off and then it was 1 degree Celsius different from the accepted environment. The standard. Reject yourself, this was not arrive in it arrived in conditions of accurate. That's the end. That's why I think it's happening properly. So I think that with that, all of us here are ambassadors. So wherever we are,
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Just like said, the training, we may not have a funding department of it. Also, when we do that, we are the ambassadors of some of these things. You can articulate a small limit of management, depending on what you're working. You know, we always talk about risk assessment. And if you look at Nigeria, it's not completely a hopeless situation as a country. We need to understand that it's not every facility that deals with valuable biological materials. If you're working in a primary healthcare center, yes, you know that organisms can come, small things. They may not fall into the category where you really need to, go the extra mile. It's not every sample you need for packaging for. So this sample, that's why we look at biosafety levels. The ones that fall into the category that you need to pay attention. These are the ones we need to worry so much about. And you see them at tertiary institutions, research centers. I just want to tell you that NCDC in Nigeria now, we know that NCDC is the national lab reference. They have network of reference labs that deal with organisms of interest. And in terms of moving samples around, they have a company. I thought you could have said something. You are a staff of NCDC. Tranex, the staff of Tranex have been trained. Some NCDC staff have also been trained on shipping of infectious substance. And there was a time NCDC organized a shipping for a step down and brought people from different facilities in Kano. I know I was one of the facilitators in that training. Also to train them on this packaging and also they trained their, because I remember when we also had a training for them in their office in Abuja. They brought people from Tranex, they invited people from Tranex, and the people from Tranex, key people from Tranex have been trained. It's a company, and they move samples, and they are so efficient that if you stay in NCDC for 1 hour, you see Tranex workers coming in, and the way they handle this. So why I'm bringing this up is that if you're not connected to NCDC in any way, or you're not in any of their, reference, you might go Nigeria, we don't do anything anyhow. Please, this information is important because we are, it's not a perfect system. We are going somewhere. There are researchers. What we are now saying is that other people, researchers who are working on this, just like we were working on something dangerous, the other researchers should learn these things. And it is open if you go to, even if you don't have to come for a training like this, just shipping of infections and read it on your own. We must not come to a hotel room to get information. Try to do self-development. And both, all of us are in the safety space now. Self-development is important. And whenever there's an opportunity to have a training, we'll advertise it as NIPSA. Those who are interested can apply so that we can get certifications, not just having the knowledge.
Okay, so she has addressed, she has given some specific examples of where such things, apply. NCDC.
And the military. The military. I know the military.
There's something missing. I'm not saying it's missing. I don't know whether it's missing. The AMP model on that traffic, the P aspect is not working. It's not there. I don't know whether it's working.
The performance.
Yes.
That's the that engage them.
I know that samples are supposed to arrive for 1 or 2 hours. They arrive for at least 3 or 4 days.
That is the key. That is the key.
The aspect of sample management that has been well taken care of. I thank God that I've sat under your tutelage. You have trained me severally, NISA and even in Canada. So that for management of sample, we have no issues. It's fully and well packaged. But my major concern that if you buy the future of the sample, that sample is leaving the lab. And someone who is, I say, maybe partially trained, is handling that sample. And they don't have a transport system that is mainly for travelers. Travelers take that sample to park. They take it to park and then they pay yes.
So we are really missing performance. Performance is missing. Performance is missing. And you, as a biosafety ambassador, if you go by the route of practice, why don't you write to Mrs. Black? You don't need to write to people who do this.
That is the obvious. Travis doesn't have the number, and so we only have one. If they want to move, like during COVID, we don't dispatch medium ATMs. That's when you see that.
When they are coming to headquarters, they'll bring their best.
Yes. They use the public transport.
Look, I can tell you. Sorry, you mentioned the finance. Finance. Yeah, I know that finance is not the only courier organization that handles.
We have mystery also.
Yeah.
Apart from Canada, we have mystery. Mystery is those that mean my mentor concern is
Before they pick sample, before they pick the sample, they'll call you.
No, DHL is not a it's the cost that
I'm saying that this is after the I'm very happy that this discussion you know, so I'll tell you from my own experience. I'm at the airport. When I have send me
this is makeup.
Madam just said something very important. When Nigerians, you see, most of us, in fact, the major factor is 1 hour, 2 hour, we have passed spending money. We can talk here. In the airport, most of these samples are transported ahead. Most of it. I get called nearly every time. Why? The Tranex and the other ones, they are other unaccredited subcontractors who is especially in country. When you go outside the country, we don't even that one, you don't worry about that one. Why? The agent that is going to receive will tell you before they receive, they will show you the standard. So we don't have to run that way. All these players and DHL and all, even the airlines, they have departments. The safety officers will come. When you bring a biological product, they give you forms of it. Before they even allow you to bring the material. If you don't meet all the checklist items, the problem is the local ones. And you know what happens? So like Tranex, when they come to your facility, you used to drop everything. Once they come to the airport, you sort of contract. You see that the people they sort of contract, no nothing. I can tell you that no nothing. Several times I've gone to contain areas where you see organs, you see tissues, you see animals, and blood samples. Just packaged like normal cargo. We have a dangerous goods section in the airport. Most of the guys that those dangerous goods don't have any training on biological stuff, nothing. So my advice is this: what is this are doing? You need to go out and put this stuff and training. You see all those airlines. So let me tell you, it's very simple. This can be, you see, it can be the initial. You see the airlines, the car parks, go there, meet the SOs, arrange training for them first to understand that if anybody brings anything like this, there are questions they should ask. Most of them, they are needing for money. They just need the money. I've seen those samples packed with shoes, with food, like the airport. And you see those guys, if you come to the airport, you see some boys at the gate, you see package, people come to receive package. Some of those things, those samples are there. They just say, just transport to this person, receive this from you. They use any means. So we need to go and train, go back and train this subcontractor. Because it's only DHL because they get all the paper. And there are penalties. There are penalties if they do the wrong thing. These are not
you know what, Dr. Issa? Let's run and close early. Then we'll spend maybe 30 minutes to 1 hour and run mine for the
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have the serious challenge in our hand. Instead of this, movement of oil material, infantry, and then across. All right. Of course, there is one line of business that is on the increase now. Is a supply chain. Logistics. Everybody buy something here, deliver something, then they can deliver all this. And as a result, sometimes they can carry both food and political materials and whatever inside. I think that in the act of shipping, even if we mention the shipment under security, I think even also as well as security, whatever has to move, actually move in the way that those who are handling we are safe, and then we also do not run the risk of losing our valuable material because of transportation. I want to get that. So finally, we looked at the fifth pillar of price security. That was the information security. And that was the last one. So we had to talk about how our information concerning valuable materials are actually secure. Then we looked at issues of we looked at issues of ensuring the safety of our data. So I think we'll stop there so that we go to our manager for today.
Okay. So I come up for everyone. Very interactive session. We'll still interact more. And while it's moving on, today we are rounding up at today is Friday. We have people who may want to go to hospital. We are taking introduction to incident management and response. That's the only module we have for today. That we do something for marketing. So everybody will say good morning, thank God it's Friday.
Good morning, thank God.
Did we say thank God it's, did we wish thank God it's Friday today?
Yes.
Why do people do that? What is peculiar about Friday that people get excited about? Weekend.
Get home on time.
Where is this Lagosian? Why are the Lagosians here? Why are the Lagosians here? They are the go guy. Thank God it's Friday because they know that I'm telling you. Some people from Thursday, and the Lagosian once told me that their own weekend starts on Thursday. When they go, Professor Nemore is not there. It's on Thursday. They are close to being their booth. Your antenna is already out, looking for where the party is, so that they can go and do. Well, for some of us who may not do, we've been working since Monday, but at least after Friday, we have paid our dues. They are moving. The fear of COVID, the beginning of everything. So, our intention is to close everything. Yes. So, for incidents, let me still go back. We are introducing you to incident management and response. Okay. And the key messages that we have. An incident response system is broad in scope and complexity. An incident response also requires the input of many stakeholders. It's not a one-man show. You need many stakeholders. That's why it's always good that we work together. Supervisors who enjoy working in silos sometimes achieving results. In fact, when they're making mistakes, people who they didn't carry along will see it and look the other way.
So it requires stakeholders, some internal and some external. Planning and preparation as essential is essential to the success of an incident response system. Very important. Do you think everybody plans? No. Some people don't plan. Yes. I disagree with you. You know what? Everybody plans. You either plan to succeed or you plan to fail. But whether everybody plans, even if you were lying on your bed, you are planning to fail. That's why you didn't get up. So go out there, let some sun hit you. In my local language, they say, when you go out and sun is hitting you, then you're sure that you will eat. Or they will say, when your hands are dirty, then your mouth will be oily. In agriculture, and if I speak it in English, you will not understand. But hand that is dirty, like you're picking sand, you're planting, it translates to mouth that is oily, oil that means eating. So if you don't plant, you cannot enjoy it. So everybody plants, and we don't want to be part of the people that plan to fail. A lazy man. Okay? So in incident response, planning and preparation is essential to the success of an incident response system. Then to determine the effectiveness. Where is Dr. Honey? He talked about the P. Do you know that P is so powerful that it is the P that leads you back to the A? So to determine effectiveness, that P must be strong because it is the P that will help you to determine effectiveness. So to do that in an incident response system, it must be tested. Drills and other exercises are critical to measure how well the system has been designed. And then we need to also communicate whether it is appropriate. The right response, the right personnel must be notified as part of an effective incident management system. I'm getting a hot back. Talking to myself.
Maybe we should put it up. I don't know how to.
No, this is microphone. Providing feedback from drills and incident response and continually improving the system is imperative for success of the system. So, let's carry itself. So, because this is the last module, I want us to take a final look before we depart of the definition of assessment. Somebody from table 2, please read it. This is a final module, and we must now recap the definition of our BIORISK assessment. We've been talking about risk assessment. Somebody from table 2, please read and remind us.
BIORISK assessment, process of identifying the hazards and evaluating the risks associated with biological agents and toxins, taking into account the adequacy of any existing controls and deciding whether or not the risk is.
Is everybody home with this definition? Is there anything that you do not understand when that definition comes the way it's coming? This is Josephine. Okay, yeah. I need to hear from you. Yes. Are you completely home with this because of all this discussed?
I'm very at home. Even within the biosecurity, there is need for this assessment before we can now be able to know how to mitigate.
So you're home with this definition of risk assessment. The take home is that one, you need to identify what the hazards. You can't deal with what you don't know. And then, not just identifying it, evaluate the risk associated with it. What is it going to help you to do? When you understand how dangerous it is, let me use it in that way. You have to evaluate moderate risk, low risk, high risk, highest risk, to enable you know how to, the big stick you're coming to deal with it, how big the stick will be. Then, taking into account the adequacy of any existing control. Do we understand what that means? Adequacy of your existing control. What might be adequate for me, my existing control, where I work, the trained personnel around me, the equipment I have, everything. If this guy working in the military the things he will comfortably accept and deal with. Myself in a general hospital where we are even begging for little working materials, I will not accept the risk he can accept. That's what he's talking about. Adequacy of your controls. And that means your administrative control, your engineering control, the personnel, practice, everything will have to be holistically looked together. Because I want us to understand this. Your ambassadors, and someday will call you, go and step down. Somebody asks you questions and you're talking, going up and down, and you might even confuse people. So that's why I'm taking time to explain this definition. And that is also why people in Kuje will say, we already have the risk of having prisoners. We can't deal with Ebola. They know it's a community. They don't want you to bring something that will come as late as they are. Women got naked and demonstrated. And that's one of the things we use to demonstrate adequacy of control. Not really in they didn't have the knowledge of any safety or whatever, but they were just saying, don't bring this to our community. And then these are the things that will help you to accept. Don't just say because a grant is coming and that grant wants you to work with BIORISK. You don't have anything, but bring the money. You're just looking at the money they are bringing for you to share. You're not looking at adequacy of your control. And at the end of the day, the people working with you will get infected and some people are dying. Or even you, that is the principal investigator. That's what he's saying. Before you accept to work on anything, be sure that adequacy of your controls are in order. And it will help you to decide whether to accept the risk or not to accept the risk. Okay? Mitigation. This is easier. Somebody from table 3.
Actions and control measures that are put into use to eliminate the risks associated with biological agents and control.
So these ones are straightforward. Actions and control measures. Okay. We have different controls. Do you think just putting SOP in place is a control measure? No.
That's why it's an action.
Is it a control measure?
Yes.
When you put SOPs in place, those that prepared the SOP and they brought the SOP to, for use, that's an administrative control measure. Then the practice of Dr. Adamu was just talking about mindset of people, attitudinal change. People are having SOP, they're not using it. So the fact that the professional feels responsible enough to use the SOP is a good practice that will strengthen mitigation. So not just having it. They mean well, they bring PPEs. Do people use it well? They wear their well because they keep it open, all those kind of things. So when you have to teach back or step down this training, please make sure under this that you let people know that actions and control measures in mitigation go a long way through all the pillars, all the, I won't use pillar now, the different mitigation measures that we have, elimination and substitution. If you can't eliminate it because you're working in a facility where you don't have the powers to say, I will not work with this. But you can say, okay, if I'm going to work with this, you need to provide A, B, C, D, E. Don't always accept to deal with things you know can cause harm, even when you have opportunity to ask for the things, control measures. Put a memo up. Okay, no problem, we'll work with this. Like, provide us with ABC. That's important. Okay? So, think through, when you're looking at mitigation, think through the elimination, and either you eliminate, you may not have power, or you substitute. Then think through your engineering control. Think through what again? Think through, and then think through PPEs. Okay, thank you. All right. So performance, very strong. I said this performance, if you get it right, then it means, So somebody read table.
The implementation of the entire BIORISK management system includes evaluating and ensuring that the system is working the way it was designed. Another aspect of performance is the process of continually improving the system.
You know what I like here? The recording which means it is important to put documentation is very important. Document, and also control the documents that you're documenting, so that what happened in 1955 will not happen again. Ask me what happened in 1985. I was right there. I wasn't born there. So it's just important to have recording, and then you also, after recording, from time to time, move around, supervisory, continuous supervision. You also sit down to evaluate everything you have seen. Evaluate it. Why are you doing that? To make sure that these things, these PPEs that we provide, the people are using it. These engineering controls, maybe equipment, your centrifuge, your BAC, they are using it appropriately because there are guidelines, there are SOPs. Are they following it? You know. So these are the things that will help you know whether the holes that were there before have been blocked. You made effort to block the holes. Is it still remaining blocked? Or they have opened up? If they have opened up, is the opening wider now? Getting wider, how do I block it? Okay, so these are the things. And it will also help you to know if you applied one mitigation measure, is it enough? Or do I do double? Or do I do triple? Do I bring in, you can even bring in the different mitigation measures just to make sure that the system is, working the way it's designed to reduce risk to an asset. So that said, are we good with all this as we are taking home? Right. So incident. Introduction to incident management and response. In your groups, we won't do it in group now. Definition of an incident. So group group 5. What do you think is an incident?
It is an intake.
Group 5.
An event.
Define an incident. I'm not hearing you. They are not hearing you. You're not.
It is an event that is likely to have adverse consequences.
Are you reading from your?
No.
Okay. So in plenary now, everybody please pay attention. He's defining an incident. He's already in your book. He's there now. Yes. You know what happens when you won't be paying attention. Let's close our books and let's have just trust us. Why should I trust you? I don't trust the baby at all.
No,
the baby that are picking up.
I want to buy it.
Okay. So an incident is what? Yes. So, what is the difference between an incident and an accident? We've already known what an incident is. An event, the likelihood of an event happening. Adverse event, because it has, also consequences. So, what's the difference between an incident and an accident? So, we have seen incident versus accident. An incident is an event that is likely to have adverse consequences. That's an incident. Something to, if somebody was going out, the chair fell down. It's an incident. But is it an accident? No. So an accident is an incident that requires an immediate response. An emergency. So is an incident an accident? No. Is an incident an accident? Is an accident an incident? Yes. That's the point we want to take home here. Every accident is an incident, but not every incident is an accident. That's the thing. When you have an adult class, it's not, we won't spend time in primary things. Okay? Yes. Yes, why not?
So, you're talking about the incident now. That's what we also call learning from incident. There's nothing that says experience is the best teacher.
Sure.
But if you allow that thing to happen to you, it's not only a good teacher. So what lessons, if something happens, if accident occurs, what lessons have you learned maybe drivers and so on. If there's any outbreak in the house or fire, what lessons have we learned from that so that next time there will not be a repeat of such things?
The fire becomes an emergency.
Yeah.
So the incident that is not an emergency, the small incident we can call near misses should be overlooked enough. We must also take note. Look at the cost of the gas in QMS. What we say when something happens, a small incident, document it, investigate it, the root cause, because it is the root cause that will help you know what corrective action. You will have to take an immediate action. You also have to do a corrective action. So from what he's saying, you need to investigate. What caused this? You got up and your chain just fell. What caused it? You may not be wounded at this point. It might be falling 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and the 5th time, somebody gets injured. And if you do not investigate that incident, document it, find out why it's happening. Is the chair getting old and getting expired? Do they need to remove it from this hall? So not everybody. I have fallen in a training hall like this. There was a step and we were taking tea, you know. So you step up and go and take them. There was no signage. In fact, in that training, in Abuja, 2 of us had that. So as soon as we collected it to talk like this, you forget that there's a step. That's how I just saw myself with my beautiful suit. I landed on the ground. It's not I had the tip up broke, but the hot water didn't come this way. Because who had to come at this? Another man was just, you know, taking tea. As soon as he turned, no, he just fell. It was very I'm coming. Let me finish this story. You know what happened? You know what we did? Litigation now. Taking not allowing this incident because it's not the accident we had. Somebody could have broken legs. You know, if I break leg now, what will happen? So we reported to the hotel manager and we insisted. You must move. You can't be stepping on a little step to go and take tea. They have to relocate that tea break area to a place that is flat so that we can take tea in peace. You know, and then we now ask them, please go through the hotel where you have steps. You know these are steps like later. You won't sign. There are signs. That is a safety officer. It's not even in general safety that is not even by your safety because that one has now come to general safety. You must put, you know, tapes. In my church, I noticed that inside the church there's a staking and there's no tape. Sometimes visitors come to our church and they will treat. I said, I know my meaning. What are you doing? You know that somebody can be balanced. They come to church and you fall. So they have to go and look for yellow tapes and then put it on. So you're going to say something. He's a pastor. He says a better that goes to the church. Because there's no step other than step. Oh, there's a step I command.
In fact, and the thing is not for you. The man always abandoned and the thing for you.
Yes,
so my opinion is the thing is not for you. So did you understand that this is all of you?
Oh my God, I was listening with the
this training, even though we're talking about laboratory steps and so on, we relate it to other aspects of life. Very important. We'll talk about this, for instance, my friend from the aviation industry, we have been having crashes and so on. Learning from incidents. When a crash happens, what lessons have we learned? So, what kind of mitigation do you put in place so that subsequently will not occur again? So that's the lesson we're taking over from here. So you want to see incident is general, it happen anywhere. Even in your house. For instance, you know that ordinary to people use here that have to separate. They can cause someone to go to the hospital. When you see it on the floor, you don't remember.
Correct, exactly.
It looks minor. We can take it to the hospital.
Exactly.
So we should be very careful about
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I was going on the road one day and I saw a little child with this sword, sword on the road. The little girl was just cleaning her hair like this, going on the road. I was in the car. I stopped and I said, what do you think you're doing? I collected that. Because if I leave and say, don't do that, she will still do it. So trainings like this, we always advise, we will take it even beyond the lab, take it home, take it to our community. Just keep teaching people as we go. So remember, we're talking about incident and an emergency. So some of the exercises are things we've already discussed. We will not spend time on them. This one is take 5 minutes to look at your examples of incidents. And in fact, let's actually look at examples of incidents and categorize them as either an incident or an accident. I'm going to take my marker. Let's not skip it. So you tell me what incidents are. After listing it, we will now know which one is truly an incident and which one is an accident. So table 1, give you an example of an incident.
Fall on the staircase.
Your own example.
When you mention it, from here now, we will agree. Emergency. Okay, so you said fall on the staircase. Is it an incident or an accident?
An incident.
Thank you. If I just tripped, I didn't fall. We're looking at fall. If I tripped, it's not a fall. It's a near miss.
Yes, and it's an incident.
Please, let's differentiate near miss, incident. Incident, something has happened. There's the consequences like that. So he said fall so there was a fall. So it's not a near miss. But classifying it, the fall is an incident.
Yes.
I will still put it here. Fall in staircase. But can this fall in staircase turn into an emergency? Yes. Simple. So fall with injury, it becomes an emergency. Yes. So table 2, what's the exact? I'll come around. Table 2. Fire outbreak. Is fire outbreak an incident or an accident? Is there a point we can regard fire as an incident?
Yes.
Is that fire outbreak? Sorry, what class? We are on table 2. Fire outbreak. Is it an incident or an accident? Is it an incident or emergency? Emergency. Don't joke with fire. Is it not that little fire that girl had to light that consumed the billion? Some of us are shopping there, I'm still mourning that fire. If you shop there, shop right is a joke. If you enter that shop.
So it's not an incident or accident.
Is fire? No, we are coming. We've not got into accident.
No, I mean.
Okay, at this point, is fire an incident or an accident?
It depends. It's not an accident.
It's an incident. It's deliberate. It's not an accident. Then we are going to get to the point of classifying incident and accident. But at this point, we are looking at incident and emergency. But also know that you will also look at incidents and accidents. So what now? If it's a spark and there's no fire, it's a near miss. So we'll put it as incident.
I think that's by
That
look at the process of the definition of an incident. An incident is an event that
So we have agreed that
it can also be.
where did we put it? We put it as there is an emergency.
Yeah.
And we also said that every emergency is an incident. Then we want to check some of these incidents. Are there some of these incidents that have graduated to an accident, an emergency? So everything we have here is an incident. But we are looking at the gravity of the incident, whether it requires quick intervention. Please don't get confused. So fire outbreak, in as much as it's an incident, it graduates to an emergency. A spark is an incident, but is it an emergency?
No.
I want us to be on the same page. Until it becomes that time it has got into fire now. The spark. Table 3.
We have to make this.
Not mention 1. We'll put it down. Okay, breakage of a window. Is it an incident that is also an emergency? Okay. Another one.
For instance,
I'm not hearing it because people are talking. You know I'm not using mic.
There are people who build their houses right on top of the high tension. And when the high tension drops on the building, it becomes an incident too. An emergency is probably that may ensue.
High tension
On the building. Electrocution.
High tension drop.
And people be electrocuted.
So this high tension drop can graduate to an emergency when people start getting, in fact, it's a very serious, dangerous accident. Okay, number 4, table 4. Chemical spill. Is it an emergency incident? Yes. Is that an emergency?
If you don't know the source of the spill, you can tell
It depends on the chemical. It depends on chemical. It depends on chemical. Table 5. Give us an incident that
fall on the slippery surface.
Okay, we have 4. My staircase was slippery surface.
By sterile needle. Needle free.
Needle free.
Sterile needle free. No, like you're not sterile. You don't know what is there.
Needle prick is an incident.
Yeah.
Is there a point it can become an emergency?
Yeah.
So it depends. So it can graduate. It depends.
Sorry, I have a
Okay.
If you look at the definition of emergency, it says that requires response. Right? Needle prick cannot be just an incident. Every needle prick requires a response.
He qualified his own.
No, but that's you see, you can't qualify. The point is a needle prick is a needle prick. How do you use steroid? You test me when you
No. He qualified it. You're just opening the I from a car. You haven't even collected samples. All right. Okay, let's go on. We promised our phone. I want to run through and see if we can finish here before tea break. Then we'll take the small remaining before lunch. All right. So sometimes incidents, some things to consider in an incident. Some types of incidents can have adverse consequences that are relatively minor, like this incident of needle prick, sterile needle prick. Okay. However, small incidents can lead to large ones down the road. We've all been seeing it here now, especially if they are frequent and breed personal. You know, it happens and people are like, okay, yeah, it doesn't matter. That's why you are going down, you trip, today you trip, tomorrow you trip. Somebody who might be older, who is not used to the environment, actually fall. I know somebody who is in hospital right now, just a lady that is 75 years old, in her own house, in front of her house. They have this, during rains, the water will form some small volleys, and they've been ignoring it. Oh, it's rainy season, no problem. And she actually fell down and broke her ankle from one hospital in Enugu, they live in Aba, and then she went to orthopedic hospital. 3 months down the line, as we speak, she's using crutches. She's at home to get up from bed. All those small things over time. Right in your own home. 75. And that healing an ankle. Okay. Then her children will just come, jump across So they are saying over time, that's why I always say, oh, it's my home, no problem.
But let me give one example. Sorry,
Yes, please. No,
You
no.
know, these manholes on the road.
Ah,
The
gee.
manholes on the road.
Aye.
They are not covered.
They are not covered.
Yeah, so that is a major one.
Very major.
That was the day
Let's listen to him. He's sharing an experience. You can also share so that we can all.
There was a day I was driving and not covered with that road. And even though there was a manhole that was not covered and it rained. And the water covered.
No, it was.
The water covered the manhole and didn't know. So all these bus drivers that are coming on the road were touching that.
And you were driving?
I was driving. Wow! What an incident. That's why the car stopped. The wheel bent.
Yeah.
I came down from the rain, the road by this and I think you have to help me drive the car. So some things are everywhere. The mango that are not covered. It's a major incident that can also go to emergency.
Exactly.
You know? So when we're talking about that, I say it should be relative. When we're talking about it, it should be open-minded and related to several areas.
Several areas. Exactly. There's even a video that has been going round. A guy, it was raining, a guy is having an umbrella.
That's right. The umbrella.
So it's what it was raining and I saw that video. I was like, I hope this is just and the umbrella was on the road, the man just went in. That's like that. So society, the government, and upper management often decide what constitutes a large or small incident. It is then up to the management to do what? To determine to what extent resources should be allocated towards an incident response management system. So where we are heading to now is knowing that things can happen and it might not be minor. A management of an institution should put an incident, we are reacting in everything in this country. We need to be proactive. This teaching is about being proactive now. That's where we are going to now. How would management be proactive? Good morning, Mr. President. You see what I told you? See, it's looking different. The groove, the weekend groove has already happened. Are you having some grooving clothes in the weekend? We need to assess it back. I'm
recorded by the prison after. It's like Sunday after.
Okay. So we are saying that incident response by management should be proactive, put in place. So as we are going on, we'll now see how we can also help management. So because an emergency is simply a particular type of incident, an emergency response system will often form part of a larger incident response system. So incident response has to be holistic. So we are to develop a definition of an incident response system. Incident response system. Develop it. What do you understand by an incident response system? What do you understand by that? So just 2 minutes in your group, develop a definition for an incident response system. Just a definition of an incident response system. Then you share with us. Just 2 minutes. Speak in your own language what you understand by an incident response system. I've mentioned something about being proactive. Don't tell me about incident. Tell me about the response system. What your institution is likely going to do and extend the law.
I'm prepared for it. Then access this level. Then at the same time, battery and different response.
Yeah,
That's what low access. The access those have been put together so access. Yes.
Are we ready with our definitions? Okay, just the definition. So let's look at the groups that are ready. Who is ready with the definition? Group 5, they are ready. Just the definition. Don't copy exactly what you are ready. So you read. Let me. No, hold on. No, don't worry. This one was working now. Okay, from there. Now I have put it on. You can see a button. Let's see whether is it on? So every group is ready. It's like group 5. They are ready. Oh, yeah. Definition. Let's listen. There are keywords I want to get.
A definition of incident response system is all the processes and methods that is put in place by an organization to plan, prepare, assess, and mount adequate response against an incident to prevent an untoward occurrence.
Okay. So the key words there, they said put in place to plan, and they prepare, and they also have to assess. So they have 2 points: plan, prepare, and assess. Amount. No, I didn't see mounted. Okay, mount. Adequate response. Mount adequate response. Okay, mount adequate response. And I want to change the word mount to alert. So that the mounting translates to, I guess it translates to alerting. Because if you mount adequate response with it, you have points where people who are mounted, they are supposed to alert in case there is something going wrong. Okay, so table 4. Oh, you are ready to okay, let's listen.
Incident response planning.
So listen, whether they are going to make sense.
All systems put in place to effectively reduce ad hoc measures in response.
All
Systems put in place to effectively reduce ad hoc measures in response.
All systems put in place to effectively reduce ad hoc measures. This definition, did it bring out anything about preparation, alarming, give the example.
Examples like fire drills, field drills, alarm systems.
They are part of preparation. Okay, so their definition is everything they well, definition.
We define an incident response as a system or a set of activities which timely respond to an event which has a tendency to cause harm. An incident response system is a set of activities which timely respond to an event which has a tendency to cause harm.
Everything you need to do to timely respond to an event. After going around, I'll give you a guide on what the definition is of BIORISK.
For this group, we want to define the response system as all the responses, alerts, measures that are put in place to respond, to overcome, manage, and to reduce or minimize or prevent the occurrence of an event so that it does not different.
Prof wants to assess, to manage, to plan, and reduce. It is reducing an incident so that you don't come to that's their definition. And it's and make sure. That's their definition. They just want to make sure and it's still not
From the truth now, our key was we talked about. Okay. It's a system put in place by management to detect, alert, analyze, mobilize, and respond to incidents to prevent further recurrence.
Okay. So thank you very much. Atama for everybody. Atama. So 5 atama for the 5 days. That's what it means. No, I've had 5 atama. So 1 technical. So the take home here for an incident response system is a system that can 1 plan. We're now going to tell you about planning, what you need to do, prepare for potential incidents. And that system will talk about alerts and assess actual incidents and quickly mount an effective response if an incident occurs. So the group that is saying everything that needs to be put in place. So when you're putting that in place, you have to consider the areas of planning, preparing, alerting, assessing actual incidents, and also having effective response. So let's look at the next slide. Incident response system. So you can't respond to something you don't know. So every incident response system must be able to do what? Alert. Incident, we've all agreed and we've all taken examples of incidents. But when an incident happens, there has to be an alert that will generate a response. Yes.
No problem. Sometimes when you are attitude, nonchalant attitude, maybe, or the management aspects of things, they will not listen. They will not do that. They will not respond immediately. Issues like this require prompt response. You are what do we do?
Okay. We are looking at the ideal situation. What happens in our facilities? It's not that. So in an ideal situation, there has to be alert. This is the most basic incident response system, creating an alert. And that alert system will lead to mobilization. So what you're saying now, even when people are alert, the mobilization is not put in place. They don't, our response rate is very slow. Okay? That's why this is level one.
I want to
Listen to your class.
this
Also
can
like
help us develop an incident response system. In the university now, there's a video that I've gone by, I don't know. But what we have observed, there is this.
The video went viral.
There's a video went viral of a girl that, what is a fine long hair, and then there's a.
Okay, phone. I saw the video. Is it that
was acting?
Or it was acted to show that these things are possible?
But the one that we have that's common now is
I actually believed it. I thought it was.
the way it was done, you can see the flashing was.
Ah. Then why were they actually? Didn't it happen in real life?
You just did that. But this one I'm talking about, I had it at the experience.
Okay.
Now, then this what this place we are now, very black, very such. That's a big it's like it's a full laptop.
All that.
So the students
are used to
load all their courses.
Yeah.
They will load all the courses on this. And so when there's an example, they will just you just left hand like this. And you just when you are coming to cover it, you don't press it.
Tell me something.
When you pass, you don't press it. And just you don't know it's there. So I want this class to help you develop an incident response.
No, he has a point. We won't develop that this one, but we'll develop it. We want to guide him, develop how can
there are rules to conform students in the sample. Because there are money. Nobody should come to this.
Rise in time. I will be reminding them. Everything is joining us by 10, any moment from now. And it will be nice. It's good to have a rowdy class, but it's also not good to have a rowdy class. Rowdy in the sense that everyone is talking, not rowdy in the sense that when everyone is talking, they are not getting. Prof said this because he has a body about that. And I've gotten like 3. You said elimination of the risk board. So don't bring risk board. Yes. We don't know what the policy is. Somebody said, put a clock. So you can't say, oh, I need the one to check my time. Put a clock, you'll be looking at it. Did anybody substitution? We must be linking everything we are doing back to. So elimination, substitution. What do you need? CCTV camera. See the it's not the people. We are giving you your money. It's not taking the
then the university should take it. All these are bangles, anything on your neck, your hand, phones.
I didn't ask you. You know what he's saying will come before every other thing. If there is no approved policy, you tell a student remove your watch. He will tell you. He will tell you, I will not remove it, and you cannot prosecute. But the university makes a policy. No watch, no jewelry, no even this week, women wear. You don't know what is inside. So that policy, our learning point now, there has to be a policy that will drive the implementation of this recommendations that we have, given as mitigation measures for students. This incident that's happened in exam halls. Okay? So Prof has gotten his.
Please, I have a question.
Okay.
Can incident response be late?
Hey, now, it can be late now.
Yes.
And if it is late, which means there's a lapse, that is where performance comes from. Why is it late? Why did it not go my fault? Okay, can we go on? We're still going through all the steps we need to know. So here we have agreed that this is the most basic incident response: alert and then mobilization. There's a lot of ingredients that come into mobilization. So let's just go to the next slide. Model for an effective incident response system, not the lapses that we have, an effective one, a one that is working. There has to be what? Planning. Even before the incident. You cannot respond to an incident. You wait when it happens. When an accident happens, then road safety will start blocking road and disturbing our peace. And they've been seeing that control over time. They didn't bother. A trailer breaks down on the road. I was traveling on the road. And then you see this trailer just narrowing, it didn't broke down on a hill. And it's so long that we have just a little space. We all experience that when we travel. So when a car is coming, all they did was to drop plants and put it like, And when some crazy drivers are coming, if there's a plant, they're not speeding. I was not the driver that was taking me to the airport, over the airport I was coming from. When he saw the plant, he slowed down. I said, well, I'm a passionate dog. We all drive. So when we observe, a sensitive driver should see, and slow down. So we're talking about effective incident management response. Not when that accident happens, then they'll come and start disturbing us and telling us. There has to be planning. And that planning leads you to preparation. Preparation. And what is planning, if I may ask? What is planning? From what he said, it is during planning that you'll be able to know that we need a policy. Yes. Then upper management will develop a policy concerning that thing. Just in case so and so, there are you generate scenarios. Even before possible scenarios, when we are talking about different types of things, these are possible scenarios that can happen. So for each scenario, you will now generate a policy covering many things that can happen in a system, in a hospital setting, that includes clinic, what, lab, pharmacy, everything, patient coming, you generate different scenarios that can happen. And then create a policy. Then you have a team that will also now look at the policy. Policies are not documented on campus. Somebody has to interpret that policy and develop guidelines to implement. Because without that step, policies doesn't make sense to anyone. So those guidelines will guide the implementation steps. Bring it down, just like having a strategic plan. Doesn't mean anything. But the operational plan will help you if you get money, where do we put it? So that guideline will help to know they are all under, planning. And then when you have guidelines to tell people who are supposed to be implementing managers at any point in this response, they'll begin to prepare. They will know what to prepare against. And then you can see this pictorial, beautiful pictorial. The preparation will tell you to prepare against fire incidents, to prepare against the middle break. And when you're preparing, does that not tell you that part of the preparation you might begin to say, we need to train our staff? Nobody wakes up and says, oh, we need to train our staff. There are scenarios that have been generated out of it like this. They need to train their staff. I have seen that they need to train them. Okay? So it is that top management that will put things in place that will come to the middle level managers that will pick a document and say, okay, based on ABCDE, we need to train, we need to buy PPEs, we need to make sure that engineering controls that are here, either we will certify some or some are obsolete, we need to change them. Okay? So see this incident is still here. These things will have to happen so that when the planning is done well, we say everybody plans, plan to fail or plan to succeed. Prepare and wait. It may not happen in 5 years, but in 10 years, suddenly it happens. What do we do? Alert. Because at this point now, you have planned, prepared for in case something happens, there's a lady whose eye is on the CCTV. You understand? Not a CCTV that they will look at after every 1 week. Meanwhile, the thing has already happened. You see, you can relate this to our day-to-day living. When there's no perfect system, whether accidents will happen, they will happen, no matter what you do. But we want to minimize the rate of happening and elongate the period. Instead of that thing happening, some things may not happen in 50 years because somebody was responsible enough to put in place proper planning and preparation to safeguard that incident happening. So when the alert comes, you assess and then you mobilize. Okay, sir.
Poverty. What do I say so? Now we have had cases, incidents of tanker falling, and people go to school fear, and in the process, fire comes up and they die. The next day, another tanker will fall, people will still go. So what do they are still fuel, knowing really well that it's a dead car. So what I was planning, when you have things happen, you try because the poverty can bring.
You know what we are planning? We are planning that the trailers don't fall. Like government making sure that the roads are clear. And also putting rails in place so that you don't carry such dangerous materials on the road where passengers commute. And the tankers have good worthiness. You see the power of planning.
And the drivers are trained.
And the drivers are trained. But why don't we even fortify the planning to the point that you carry this thing by rail?
There's no rail.
The coaches are not, we're not looking at Nigeria. Let's look at what is it supposed to be. Because it is what is supposed to be that will help us. You're from Delta State. If they make you commissioner of commissioner of health, you may not have power to implement this now. But our prayer is that they make it because they need to remember all of that. What we have. Get this commissionership that you do that you will have the power to implement some of these things. Yes. You know what is important? At your own little corner, see what you can do. See what you can do to make the system work.
You know, this question I asked, I really got up with planning now.
Exactly.
Well, I think this is good, and for me, it's actually quite specific. And the example of the Lagos State, it's actually very good. If you compare contrast the response to Ebola and response to COVID, we will see how response incidents response system comes into play in the state. During Ebola, we were waiting for foreign experts to help us. In fact, where they sent samples to was a major problem for over 18 to 24 months. Manpower was an issue. Facility was an issue. So from there, Lagos State sets up schemes. Then Dr. Muti will be going for meetings every 2 weeks. I'll be like, why are you wasting your time for something that is not, we're not even sure it's going to happen? And every Friday, instead of going to meet your family, you are in allowed meeting for 3 hours, wasting your time. 3 years down the lane, COVID came. And the moment COVID was announced in China, Lagos State sets up emergency EOC. They've been having meetings every week, for 2 months before it landed in Lagos. So it became forcing to respond because everything has been planned prepared for you. The only thing I think it wasn't prepared for was the magnitude of the crisis. And that was why after like 3 months, they were short of it. And so they could not run for like 1 week or so. And so for me, these things are quite practical. And in our various facilities, especially those of us that were middle-level managers, senior managers, it's one thing to say, if this is lesson I pick personally, make your impact. Yes, it could happen. They may not be bold or courageous enough to say, you said it. Or when next you go say a similar thing, that thing that has happened will make them to listen to you and act. And honestly, I think that's it. Thank you.
Atama for him. He is a leader, and if only, even at the federal level, they are doing 50% of what the proactiveness of Lagos State, Nigeria will do that. And if only other state governors, like we are saying, peer review, they may not have as much. Lagos, we have a lot of money, but it's not about the money. The little they have, sorry, sir. Just keep it for a while. Will it come to an accident?
The peculiar thing about Lagos State, I'm not a rapist. I'm only the Lagos State. Lagos is the only state where people believe that education works. One of the few states that believe that this road they go, there's benefit to it. So, in every system, Lagos State government tries to bring in what academics have to offer. That's one thing that makes it more different. That is why they're able to do.
So advise your governor to bring in the academics.
The reason is this: Lagos State and most Yoruba states are the states where individuals have made money.
Are you making excuses by your state?
I'm not making excuses. Most of the states, the rich men you have in the states are rich because of the government. In Lagos State and the most Yoruba state, the rich men are rich because of their entrepreneurs. So people can start and say, look, my brother, sit down, let's discuss this matter. It's true. Everybody's going to government to do for money. This is what the governor says. If you have a governor who thinks that he knows everything, and that's what we have. That's what we have across most of our side. The governor does wrong on school. They're talking about the
okay. Thank you. So our take home here is not just we've listened to incidents, effective incident response system, and we are now reflecting that in our states, why is it not effective? Do we even have an incident system that is working? And the answer maybe yes, maybe no, depending on where we are going. So we are here to learn what it should be, the approach we should give it, so that when we go back, we're able to communicate to our management. God said it now. Have a meeting, make an input. Let it be that if they didn't hear today, they can hear tomorrow. Don't say, they won't listen to me, or little me. There's nothing like that, because education, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. So here, if we look at this effective response system, simply put, planning and preparation, we have already said it, incident, then alert, assessment, and mobilization. So incident response is the most effective incident response can, one, plan, prepare for potential incidents. We have said it in the morning, create scenarios, potential, it cannot happen. But it could happen. And there's nobody that can say, if you are in the health sector, you are in the health sector, Federal Ministry of Health, we see that they are the administrators of this, health in Nigeria, and then the state ministries of health. They can create, scenario. What if there's yellow fever outbreak? What do we do? Then they will train people, set in motion things that can make, prepare people for that incident. All the outbreaks we've had in Nigeria, how much preparation? You will only hear, 50 people died in Delta, unknown disease, killing people. And they'll be telling us the number, the news will come, they will tell us the numbers that are being killed, the social media will carry it. And I'm like, how come nobody had an information of this thing happening before people started dying? Okay, which means for potential incident, there has to be an alert system. And another thing, we must also try as safety ambassadors when we go back. See something, say something. That alert may not necessarily be that they will invite you to government house. You may not have access to the government. What of, if you don't have access, what of the commissioner? You may not have access, because this is Nigeria. Once people get into politics, they have too many bodyguards. And even when you come with something that is very important, if you look at it, you're coming to that contract. They don't, you can sit for hours just trying to get people. But I know that the aides of the commissioner, you can go through the gates, or you can just go through a CMD if you're in a facility, it's something that is localized. Try to see your CMD. If you come today, come tomorrow. If you can't come, they won't allow you. Write and submit. Send an advance copy. If you have somebody who is ahead of you that is always blocking mails because of God knows what, you can send an advance copy. There are so many ways to kill a rat. But what is important here, you know, is to alert and to assess actual incidents. When incidents happen, you need to assess the actual incident and quickly mount an effective response if an incident occurs. So let's look at the next slide. Now, the phase of an incident response system. The phase, different phases are involved. But we have three main phases: planning and preparation. And I seem to be very passionate about this phase, planning and preparation, because every other thing depends on planning and preparation. Every other thing, they depend on this. And then the incident, you can't wish away the incident. But as safety ambassadors, our responsibility is to see how in our facilities we can reduce, you know, the levels at which, the rates at which avoidable incidents can happen. Alert, assessment, and mobilization. So let's look at the phases one after the other. So we are coming to introduction to planning and preparation. We are looking more closely now at planning and preparation phase. So let's look at this. Without proper planning and preparation, an incident system will be unable to alert to an incident in a timely fashion. True or false? True. So properly assess the incident or mobilize effectively in response. Why is it so? Let me give you a hint. Think of an incident in your groups now where there had been no prior thought on how to respond. What was the outcome? Just think about it and then we can share. No planning. You were not even thinking about it. Then the incident happened. What was the outcome? So just think of one incident. Each level deal with one incident. You were not prepared for it. Without proper planning and preparation. So who can remember an incident? Okay, so let's take the 5. Or you share one incident. You were not properly without proper planning and preparation. What is it?
Is it B or just any example?
Use an example.
Example of a completely bomb blast.
Bomb blast.
The military bomb blast in Lagos some time ago. And the entire system wasn't prepared for what happened. No preparation, no planning, and all of that. A lot of people died, so there was confusion everywhere. Maybe I can invite Doc to speak more about that. People died, a lot of things happened. That is a typical example of a situation where there was no planning and preparation to provide effective adequate response.
So what was the outcome?
Fatal.
It was fatal.
Fatal. Many people died.
Yes.
Because there was no preparation. Nobody was researching that something like that will happen.
National disaster.
Similar thing happened in Abuja. During the bombing in Abuja.
Okay, let's finish with this now. I'll come to you. The incident, the cantonment bomb that happened, nobody was expecting it. So there was no preparation. Lagos State didn't expect that. And the outcome was chaos. People vacated their home, people were running helter-skelter, just to run, dash into the canal. If I can remember, I saw the video. So,
my wife survived it.
Your wife survived it. You see?
She went through the canal and God was able to help her.
You see, chaos, because there was no preparation, there was no planning. So the response was poor. How do you respond to something that you have not even assessed? There was no alerting. It just happened. So you can see, it was unable to alert because nobody knew it was coming. So there was no timely intervention. And even the Lagos State, as fine as Lagos State, as equipped as Lagos State is, to mobilize took a couple of hours. So response was not effective. And many people had died before they could respond. So your group, you talked about another incident.
I want to bring that close to home. The one in all the bombings now in Abuja during the time of bombing. Yes, Boko Haram bombing churches, bombing. And there was what happened in
You can also think of outbreaks related to biological.
There was what happened in Banners. People were
Banners Plaza.
What just came there on the motorbike, and drove off. Then at the tower, all those selling bananas, all those accidents. And there was traffic jam. People, children,
Outcome was traffic jam. Some people died. Cars were destroyed.
But one that came that we see worldwide and was so obvious and there was lack of preparation, even though there was information to that fact, was the bombing in Lebanon, in Beirut. The one that somebody, a ship came with some fertilizer, it's not like a phosphate or no. What do we mean by that? And ammonium something. Nitrate in large quantities. They stored it somewhere. And it was a risk that was assessed, and people were writing to government that this is the danger it is. And nobody thought of it.
There was no planning.
Suddenly,
in as much as they had their alert, but they didn't plan.
Suddenly, it's what happened.
You see. So who has an incident concerning biologicals? Okay.
For some years now, my state was reporting cholera.
You know you're very fast. Okay, so
okay. I said for some years we have not been reporting cholera, but this year we reported. So we weren't prepared for the outbreak. When it came, there was an alert, the laboratory reported cases, that's from laboratory confirmed cases. But the response is really very poor because
what we're talking about.
Yes, there is no preparation.
They were not alerted.
Yes.
They were not prepared.
Yes.
They didn't plan. Of cholera outbreak.
Yes.
It's painful that they were even alerted.
Yes.
In some cases, you could say there was no alert.
So we alerted them, we confirmed some cases, we alerted them that this is what is happening.
Let me even ask you,
yes.
How was the alert? How did you alert? What means?
The report.
Was it written?
Yes, written report to the epidemiologist and then.
So what was the outcome?
The outcome was
show us where you failed to do what you're supposed to do. You failed to plan as an institution, as a government, you failed to prepare. What was the outcome? When that
poor response and it led to death. Some people died.
You could see when we are not responsible enough as an institution, as a government to take care of these things, to plan and to prepare. People died. And lots of one life, but in Nigeria. You have something that has to do with an incident concerning biological that happened. Okay.
This one was involved in passenger national.
A A passenger with Lassa fever.
Yeah, by that time we didn't know.
The lab also like Eric.
Yes. So we had, even though we had the plan, we had the plan actually. So, and you know, public health emergency plan at that time. It was elementary. You know? And the electric plan wasn't, it was just if I didn't involve all the stakeholders.
You see, I want to hold it down. There was a plan. But that plan, they prepared a haphazard plan that didn't take care of all the stakeholders. And this is in the Air Force. Continue so that we can get the background.
So I'll just give you the scenario and then discuss on it. So I was called the passenger, VIP passenger. I was alerted that there was a deal VIP passenger. By the time I got there, I asked them to take the passenger to my emergency room. By the time I got there, sorry, I heard that the passenger actually boarded vomited in the plane.
Are you hearing me?
Boarded the flight.
Passenger with Lassa fever.
Yeah.
Boarded the plane, vomited in the plane.
Vomited in the plane. The plane was already full of passengers. So the captain said that I had to bring it down. Brought this passenger down because at the time that they brought the passenger down, the passenger had to be there long. Because she was a VIP passenger. And they wanted that passenger to travel around cost. And the reason that I was called was to come and see what I could do. Stop the guy from
so that he can travel.
So I got there with my
because it's a VIP passenger. They want
so I got there. I said, okay, he told us that he's having fever for 3 weeks. Different hospitals had a lot of antibiotics. So I went there with my laboratory team and my nurses. I told them, what saved us actually? Let's say save people. Of course, we didn't know what we were dealing with.
Yes, you didn't know. And when you don't know what you're dealing with, what do we do? Apply.
Yeah. So that's actually what happened. So we're just with the basics. We had the normal study time out. Lots of things that they had talk. We're using. Now, the emergency room in my terminal, that old international terminal, is very small. So it's about this corner. So we had all of them there. The voice was the passenger's mother was there, the wife was there. You know, I think the driver also. And then while I was trying to set up the line, I just vomited less. So maybe I shut the door. To be honest, by the time I got there, that's actually was the last time I was like, okay, maybe this guy has an offer, very nice. Even though the prior was in my mind, I wasn't thinking about that until when I saw blood, when it was last. But even with the blood, it wasn't Lassa. There was something about like this must be one of those things. That's even though in my mind, I was talking about if I was feeling like yellow fever, but that's actually that didn't come to my mind. So immediately I told the manager, I said, this guy cannot travel. We need to take him back to my house. When I went to go and meet the professional for this guy in that house, they ordered this guy on the flight and brought him to Lagos. I'm telling you, what is this guy considered? So luckily, I had the number of the mother. Like, I told the mother, you need to take the son. They brought the boy to, so they took the boy to one brother in 2 days. I kept on calling them, I was calling them, because I'm worried. I kept on calling them. Now I was worried for myself, my team, really.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to know the outcome.
I'm just allowing you to finish, but you can see this happened in Nigeria.
Yeah,
and it's a serious incident.
So the guy, like that 2 days, he traveled to
emergency.
He now moved for that small private hospital in Texas to a go hospital. One day, the go hospital referred him to.
So what eventually happened?
People died, but I'll tell you.
So say, what was the outcome? The boy died. And down the line, you have people that had attended. So you see where we are saying, what you don't know, you don't know. And you have to apply maximum protection.
I'm telling you, the diagnosis of Lassa was made the day before he died. And the moment if I was an Indian doctor, I called the guy was already actually, they asked us to make arrangements for an ambulance and time of the come. I called the guy and said, this guy committed in my presence. I need this guy to have a viral worker. That's the last thing from my mind. Not something we see every time in the airport. The Indian doctor called me back around 2 a.m. in the morning and told me that sample just came back. Now, guess what? Even up to that time, in our airport, we did nothing. No plan, there was no response.
No plan, no response. And look at what was the outcome.
The guy died. Most of us, a lot of us had contact. Because available had to come from Blues to Abuja to take our blood sample.
Take your blood samples.
Yes. So you see.
Thank you. So you see why I allowed him to. You can relate to what he's saying. And this thing is happening. Some of us that flew. It's the same airport. We know, and we could have been in the same flight with this guy. Yeah. He's sitting close to you. So when you enter, you don't know the person sitting next to you, what is going on with the person. Which means we are all at risk. While we are making effort to implement what we have learned, change the system as much as we can, we are saving our own lives and lives of our relations. So we are back to making sure that planning, what exactly is planning? What exactly is planning? So planning is the development of mechanisms and procedures. They have a feeble plan, because if they have planned properly, that man cannot be smuggled. And sometimes the system might want to plan. Dr. Oyo said performance is weak. After putting system, nobody is monitoring. If not, how did he was he smuggled back into the brain and moved to that? So planning is developing a mechanism or procedures in advance to achieve a particular goal. We have poor planning. We plan, but the planning is poor, and the monitoring is even poorer. It's even poorer. So for the purposes of this training, this is what planning is. You have to develop the mechanisms and procedures in advance, not when incidents happen, we start running up and down. When there's an outbreak, we are running up and down. So that's all about planning. So in the case of incident response, planning is what? The process whereby a potential incident is considered and evaluated. You hear the word there? Potential. That's not happened yet. That's not happened yet. You consider it, you evaluate it, and resources are assigned in order to do what? Generate a response that will appropriately mitigate any adverse effects. So scenarios are created. Drills like that. Like you said, that girl, that video is acted. You know, I believe when they acted, we can learn from it that you people in the other hand that it could happen. So you will now do what? It's a scenario you can just they have generated a scenario already. You evaluate that scenario and you design your system now to prevent that thing ever occurring. Some girl coming into an exam class with code or wearing one watch. Oh, Adam. What's Dr. Adam? Because we are trying to, help ourselves here.
Following up on what our lecturer just said, what has been your planning process since that happened?
Because a scenario has already presented itself right now. What? Moving forward. So you have only lecture
to move forward. After that incident, because it was actually the end. The results came back, they were all negative. Even though we panicked, we still managed to come out of So going from that period, we put up arrangements for the onwards here. We now have a robust public health emergency. Robust. I think those of us that passed through the airport, right? We tested it during the, even the Ebola, we tested it. That's what we Ebola. And that's what helped us with the COVID actually. Because if you compare Abuja Airport to Lagos Airport, it's a team lead for what in Abuja, there's no comparison. Abuja, in fact, the Abuja is the reference point for prevention in terms of COVID response.
Do you also have
Hold on. Don't follow yet. You see when you have class rep. Come. So let's look at this now. So incident response planning is normally the responsibility of an institution's management. The middle level manpower, the lower level, they are not the ones to plan. They have their own implementation. implementation. So top level decision makers must come together to determine the best approach for handling incidents in a particular institution. The way it works in Lagos may not be the way it will work in Abuja. The way it works in the teaching hospital where you work might be different from the way, which means before you even do this, you have to generate scenarios. You know your entry point, you know the people that visit you, you know what you're doing, you know the organisms and their safety levels you're working with, what could happen, if there is an incident. So management has the authority to make medium and long-term decisions and then allocate appropriate resources. You see the point of allocating resources, that is where the focus is. Because we want to save money, at the end of the day, these things are allowed to happen that someone could have mitigated against have an issue. We're looking at money. It costs money to get, I'm sure Lagos State government, they must have put in a lot of resources to be where they are. I was watching a video during COVID outbreak. There was this drill they did. Somebody was trying to enter, then they would just stop you, test the temperature, do all sorts of things. One man wanted to bypass that. He drove his car beyond. That video was all over the social media. And the crusher. The crusher just, boom. You couldn't hear me. The thought was, when I saw it, I actually said, a smart girl, I didn't know it's a drill. So at the end of the video, the now said it's a drill. I said, you have the video, right? So resources are very important towards incident management systems. And it's also good to know that, however, needs expertise and advice of other personnel in the institution to adequately make plans. That's where Professor Bartimeus, you see where you were going, The top management may not know it all. They need professional advice. They need, sometimes they can bring in consultants to guide them appropriately. Okay? They need expertise, people with experts in that area to advise. They need other personnel. Sometimes you can, those whom you even want to implement, you can invite them for an interaction. They will tell you, what happens, how it happens, because you're the director, CEO there are so many things the CEO may not understand. But their own is that they have the power to take decisions. But they need to get some data, primary data, to enable them know what to put into the plan. Okay? Who was saying excuse?
Oh, you have an address.
Okay. Yes. So we are going to, are we ready for team? Okay, fine. So group exercise. We are going to identify all personnel. So in your groups, what we come and give them draw flip charts. See what you're expected to do here. We've been talking about incidents. We've been talking about involving other people. This exercise is to identify all the personnel in our institutions who will contribute to management decisions during the planning phase of an incident response system. You're going to put each answer on a sticky note, so you can just call it. So start writing and place them on the flip chart. So I'll give you time to do that. See what you're going to do. When you say this particular personnel, their role and their contribution. Their role and their contribution. I think it's so you identify the personnel. You will just write on that again, the role of that personnel, and then the contribution to the planning process. So that it's not just bring people together to come and take tea break, talk politics and go. That person was invited for a particular purpose. So you'll be prepared to discuss with the rest of us. Okay, so as soon as you're done with this, then you can go for tea break. Identify every stakeholder, every personnel involved, so that your planning and your preparation will make sense.
We are looking at it in a general sense. The children that's everybody who is the highest
not me.
Okay, we are all in
Most of the inputs you see are public. Because of my strength and ground.
Who is responsible for implementing that when you brought in any when you brought it
most times I'm not going to bring it up. Because when they are starting to see the implementation, that's an alarm.
So, in your own opinion, now, who and who should be
when you are
involved in the stakeholder and
the people who are responsible for taking
and we have the authority.
Yes, whatever you say. There's fun to finish. You know the why that one was released because it's very important.
That see the higher.
Not the same in the ministry,
the head of finance,
the head of that the implementers,
the head of the report.
Yes, those the head from me, the gentleman in Lagos, those in Kano, the one in
so head of good director. Okay, head of then you don't have unit heads.
Unit head.
Under you don't have
No. Yeah, the part of entry like a unit. What they're doing to make my work easier, apply supervisors. Well, but everything they do comes back to me. I don't know, they're not there. Yeah. But the heads of units, for example, they also need those who have the process. But the expense they have different what everybody then the heads of team can because I see sick process as well.
I know. I see that head of the
various units.
You have to work with some people to ensure that.
But I'm the implementer. Those ones are to be in the meeting. Yes, like the head of the one this I want this one.
Procurement, finance, releasing from money. I think this stuff is very yes, it is a business institution. Right before you the writing goes into the right of the you know what to do point of important service you can write down yes, let's start answering. What's the duty? This
without signing before, you don't get the
next Monday.
yes.
That's why I said this one should be to sign it off.
Yes. You sign it off.
This is the one that release funds.
Yeah, the director of procurement.
Very good. Government.
You had the value.
What's the
That's what I'm the auditors audit what they have done. That audit. Director of protection. Director of public health. Director of protection.
what would be those
Director of public health, head of department.
in the list?
Yes, on that way. The protection service division under public health. You need director of protection.
What is public health? Under him. Okay, let's say he's the head of all monitoring and evaluation.
Yes.
So let me have the groups share what they have. Let's discuss. Let's start with group one. Are you ready? Who is speaking for you? Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. What else? Let's listen so that when all the saying something, we'll all agree. The personnel they are noting and what do put them together because I'm going to put them up here on the sticky note on the. Please give me my. The personnel. So what we take discuss, then we will now.
We evaluators are estimators on the ground. So you need
Roles and you have the floor.
Okay.
Let's listen to all this. So that
we have self-management team, quality manager.
Self management. Tell us what is their role.
Okay, I want to talk management, because we are like managers. We also include the quality managers, facility managers, the laboratory managers, in which they all have to take the decision to make policy. And
do you put when you are talking about personnel? Do you put quality manager have the same pedestal?
Okay, no, I'm saying that all of them, you want to call them top management.
You can't call
Then I'm sorry.
so that we don't get. You know why it's important to listen, so that when Because we are all learning from each group now. Top management. Okay. So we deal with top management. This one, they are middle managers, facility man. These are different personnel. They do different things. Please understand. They properly guided. So let's deal with top management.
Okay, for top management, this is stakeholders and they are also members of the organization who take decisions to make policy.
Are you hearing that?
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, these are in top management, these are stakeholders and also organizational leaders who make decisions for policy which will be implemented within the organization and facility. Then we have security personnel. They raise alarm in case of any incident. We have cleaners.
So please come, as she's telling us that you run.
We have the front desk or
cleaners, what's their role?
Cleaners, they are also around in case of incidents, like spills.
Okay, incidents of spills.
Yes.
Okay. So they are important.
Then front desk or receptionist.
That's you see why I want to do this. So that we will open up to your group.
Front desk.
There are people she might mention. If you are not, you might say, what are these ones? Still, don't lose sight of the fact that we're talking about incident response system. So front desk receptionist in our own setting. All people will tell us their responsibility, their role and contribution to an incident response system. Do they have any role to play?
Yes, there are stakeholders and other partners into an organization. They ensure they are
if there's an incident, what would be the role of a front desk?
He can institute establish an alarm system for means of communication within the lab.
So a front desk officer can man the alarms depending on your information. So in the area of the steps you have seen, can they fall into part of the people that will alert?
Yes.
Then we have store managers, which when they see people come within their sector, usually not designated for them, they can also raise alarm.
But I think something is not right.
Okay.
The question says, identify all the personnel in an institution who could contribute to management decisions. Management decisions during the planning phase. I don't think that
you see why it's important to read the question carefully.
Yes.
Apollo, what was the SOP? So, other groups, you have your presentation. Dr. You pointed something. Say, identify all the personnel in an institution who will contribute to management decisions during the planning phase of an incident response management system. So, if this group have identified cleaners, what do you think there's a contribution? No. You can't say no. A cleaner they won't attend they won't have opportunity to attend it. But based on the work they do, they can talk to the organization. No, hold on.
Incident response planning is normally the responsibility of an institution's management.
It is the responsibility of an institution's management. Planning is at that level. But do they need primary data?
Yeah, of course. They need expertise.
This is why you need to think outside the box. If you are a CEO and you need to plan and prepare for an incident, I'm asking the question, do you think they need primary data?
Yes.
Yes. We all agree they need primary data. In aggregating this data, the cleaner, the receptionist is not supposed to be there. They might generate a primary data that can help top management. So the only thing we can be saying now that may have, I'm not okay for the group, make them to put the receptionist is that the receptionist might have a primary data to communicate to the middle level manager that might be part of that meeting.
What I'm trying to say is that they will have unit heads.
They will have unit heads or directors
Who at the level of response. That is where they come in
actually implementation. But do we also agree that in planning, is the CEOs, I'm looking at where this group, mine is to facilitate. No answer is wrong. We are all here to learn. Their line of thought is that the directors have to go for a meeting with their file. And in that file, they have gathered information. Directors should have a meeting with their unit head. Of course. And get primary data. So that as they are going to meet the CEO, they have information. Exactly. You can't contribute before you can have an effective incident management system. You're coming from either things that have happened or potential things that may happen. How do you know potential things? It's based on what we are doing, okay? These are the things we have observed. And that observation could be coming from the receptionist. Telling the director. So he aggregates that information. As we are answering this, let us also have a hindsight that the director goes to that meeting. So at that decision level, the receptionist is not done. The primary data that are aggregated, analyzed for that meeting, make some contribution. So we will not just throw them away completely. But for the purpose of this exercise, they are not supposed to be present.
They are very correct. Actually,
Contribute.
identify all the percentages.
That is why we are not throwing it away. You see why every answer is wrong. But it is for us to know that it's everybody who has one part or other to play. And when it comes to this level of decision making, top management takes the decision. They will contribute. So next to each personnel group, list their role and contribution to the planning process. So these people they have listed, their role is to just contribute to their. They are not saying who will get the meeting because they will not take decision. Please understand that when you're talking about policy matters, you have top management. There are decision levels that people in the outcome are. It is decision. Before you take that decision, he will aggregate facts that have come from his directors. The directors, before they take the decisions they will take to the CEO, they also have facts coming from their subordinates. Okay. And time for this group. All right. So our tea break is ready. But do we take off? Yeah, before tea break. Okay, they are even bringing. So which group now do I let me come to you?
Okay, the organization we are handling is port of entry.
Port of entry.
Yes, port health. Personnel to do with the Department Secretary, Ministry of Health, and with the Chief Account Officer, followed by the Director of Finance, who is responsible in releasing funds. Then we have Director of Procurement, responsible in procurement. Then we have auditors.
So what's their contribution? Their role is to release. Okay, start again. Point of entry.
Yes, the Permanent Secretary is the Chief Account Officer.
1 hour. Yes. When is ready?
The Permanent Secretary is the Chief Account Officer, then followed by the Director of Finance, who is responsible in releasing funds.
Money is very important. Without funds, all these responses.
Then, after the Director of Finance, you have Director of Procurement, who is responsible for procurement, and then the auditors, they audit the funds, make sure that they are asking for what you need. Then we have the Director of Public Health. The Directors of Public Health are responsible in monitoring and evaluation. Sorry?
Then we have the head of
You
public
mean
health
director of
services.
public health, all he does is to monitor and
On that, essentially, on that one, go ahead. But the other subject, on the focus of this.
Then we have the head of court health services. They're responsible for implementation. And after that, we have the unit head, that's the line implementation. They have the implementing.
so Atama for this group, Atama. Okay, so we're going somewhere. Identify all the personnel. We're identifying the personnel now. And it's good that you can see people who are not really, they are not even in health, they are in administration, they are in finance. So it tells you like it's a holistic thing you must carry. Because if the money, don't bring those people. There was even a time we were thinking of, in the meeting like this, we invite some of those people, so that they will hear. Where you now come, because if you say release money for something, they always, especially accountants, very mindful people. They don't want to release money. So they are important, So when you're having a meeting, you can't leave them out. They need to understand the basis of that meeting. So,
Thank you so much. We are taking the university setup.
University setup.
Yeah.
Is it a research center?
We can report incidents in the environment.
Okay, you're dealing with an incident that has to do with a university
Setup, exactly.
Okay.
So we have here the vice chancellor who shares and direct affairs in that meeting.
So vice chancellor is your toppest.
Yes, the chief executive of the university. Then we have the TDC admin who is responsible for the documentation and all of that things.
So his role is the documentation of
and then enforcement.
And enforcement. Thank you.
Then we have the registrar who issues them, will take notes when it is going on and then final decision of the committee. Yeah. Then we only have the bossa who we advise the committee of the availability of fund and the release of fund. Because it's very, very important. We only have the director of quality assurance who will be responsible for the technical aspect of the meeting, giving all the advice and that assessment out. So the quality assurance should be able to advise. Then we have the CSO, the Chief Security Officer, who will enforce implementation.
So you bring them to this
So they meet for the committee. That's what we have.
Yes, Atama for them. Atama. Which group now? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Group 2, we actually looked at the hospital setting, having the CMD. Having the CMD as the head. Having the CMD as the head, we equally have the finance book account director who provides finance, the HRO, chief clinician, that is human resources. Then all heads of units equally contribute to making the policy. The facility manager, we have a logistic officer who will provide the logistic things that will need for the policy. Then the laboratory manager is equally included, who brings the laboratory aspect. Then the supply utility officer. Then the vendor are equally not left out in the policy.
Then do you bring the vendors at this point of decision during the planning phase?
No, there are feedback can be taken.
So let's just know that they are important.
The safety officer is equally the quality manager, and the security, chief security officer is equally supposed to be there.
Yes, I like the last one, chief security officer. at this decision making, but there are other personnel that may not be part of this decision. Atama. Finally, you find, oh, 3.
Now we are taking the NCDC lab.
NCDC lab.
We have the lab scientists that take care of samples to analyze and generate data. We have the biosafety officer.
Did you read this? All personnel individuals who could contribute to management decisions during the planning phase. Okay, that's your thought. Go ahead.
Biosafety officer, they take care of for safety issues, the lab technicians that report on the problems in the lab. Surveillance officer that reports the contact traceback. The statisticians that collate all the information and analyze them to produce information. The personnel manager that brings all the records of staff. Admin officer that brings all the records of the NCDC lab. The lab manager that provides all the information and labs in the lab. The top lab director coordinates all the meetings that goes on in the lab.
So from it, everything, the people you have said there get information and it's the lab manager.
Yes.
So we are going on now.
Then the quality assurance officer brings all the information on quality control. The facility manager brings information on environmental and physical activity. Then the accounts officer gives information on the funds that are needed for planning. The stock officer brings all the information on the purchases and inventory. Then everything is reported to the top management, the TG of NCDC, to make policies.
So everything is reported to the director who collects all the information because all these people may not be at that. We know the first time decisions are taken by top management. And these other people will not be present at that, but their contribution is important to enable management to take the right decisions in preparing. We are talking about planning and preparing of responding to incidents. So on that note, I don't know, Eric, are you hearing us? Eric, are you hearing us? Okay, fine. So we'll break for tea. When we come back, we promise you today is Friday. We'll conclude this session and we'll do closing formalities. Maybe by the time we get back, Eric will be able to also greet us. So we'll stop here and go for tea. Our tea is ready. Oh, did you give an Atama to three before they drink about it? Atama. Yeah, yes.